It's IGN. I'm Ryan McCaffrey, and I'm joined by RPG guru extraordinaire Kat Bailey. Kat, you've seen a million RPGs, you've played a million RPGs, including the Mass Effect trilogy. You just got out of a demo of Mass Effect Legendary Edition, which I also sat in, and you are writing up the preview for us on IGN.com. I encourage everybody to go read that. So let's just get right to it. This is a remaster of a beloved trilogy. We got a hands-off demo. What was your initial reaction?
My initial reaction is that this is basically what we've been doing. We've been modding for 10 years now on the Mass Effect trilogy. It's just that now it is available in a complete console package. And on the one hand, that's really good. But on the other hand, I think that in the context of games like Resident Evil 2, it might seem maybe a little underwhelming.
Yeah, I think it's fair to adjust. And to be fair to EA and BioWare, They have not pitched this as a remake. They have said it's a remaster, but I still think it's important for us to kind of hammer that difference home. You mentioned Resident Evil 2, which I think is arguably the gold standard of game remakes these days. And yeah, there is a difference. A remaster is a polishing of the existing thing. A remake is a from the ground up do-over on an old thing, and this is just a polishing. And if you could, like, one word to describe what you've seen so far would be.
I mean, it's an update, right?
Yeah.
I think the thing that I'm most interested in is how Mass Effect 1 ends up playing, because that was a game that was definitely the roughest. And I know we're like maybe framing this as just a polishing or maybe a little underwhelming, but they did do a lot of work. Like, if you look at the difference with, say, Eden Prime, there is a big difference in how they've updated the environments. The character models are a big improvement. And they have made meaningful changes to the actual gameplay, especially in terms of the aim penalties and everything with the Mass Effect. So they're trying to thread this needle of keeping it the essence of the RPG elements of the original Mass Effect while also bringing it closer in line to Mass Effect 2 and 3. And I think that's really good, especially for console players. Heaven knows that Mass Effect really needed an update. That series has gotten pretty long in the tooth at this point.
I mean, it's been, the first one was over 13 years ago now. So, and that's my favorite one. Of course, my favorite one's the oldest one, the one
it's the best one.
Thank you. See, yes. I knew we would get along great. Mass Effect 1 for life. No disrespect to all the Mass Effect 2 people out there, but kind of talk a little more, because what were some of the questions you were able to get answered, and some of the additional information about this? Like, I know there was a question about, well, are you going to be dumped back to a menu at the end of each game, or will it now kind of continue seamlessly, and those kinds of things? What did we learn?
I mean, that was a big one for sure, was you do not continue seamlessly. After you complete a game, you'll go back to the launcher menu. It will run at 4K 60. It's going to have the 21:9 widescreen support, that kind of thing. So that's all very good. And the way that they upscaled the actual games was that they used an AI renderer to bring up all of the textures between 4 times and 16 times, which is pretty cool. And then they went through and they basically hand touched every asset, every character through Mass Effect 1 and 2 and a good chunk of 3. Then they also brought in a lot of people, a lot of influencers, cosplayers, interestingly enough, and had them give a lot of feedback. So a not insignificant amount of work went into this. Now, one of the big things that will stand out is that multiplayer will not be in Mass Effect 3. They said that the reason they're not doing this is because it's just going to be too much work, the scope, the crossplay. And over again, they were saying, we want to keep the scope of this project under control. And that makes sense, because if you think about, like, if you wanted to do a full-blown Resident Evil 2 remake, you wouldn't be able to do this as a package. You would have to basically do the original Mass Effect, but now it is in Resident Evil 2 form, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the most jarring part of the presentation for me, I don't know about for you, but was in the beginning when Mac Walters, the project director, who's a veteran of the entire Mass Effect series at BioWare, he starts talking about, well, we looked at moving the whole thing to Unreal Engine 4, which is the current version. Unreal Engine 5 is due to ship to developers later this year. And Mass Effect Trilogy was on Unreal 3. And he starts basically, if I interpreted it correctly, I don't know about what you think, but it basically seems like porting to Unreal Engine 4 would have been too much work. And I don't say that dismissively of the developers. They obviously have you have a budget and you have an amount of time, but that still kind of deflated me a little bit during the presentation when I was like, because man, it would look completely modern and amazing without being a full-on remake if it could have been done in Unreal 4.
Yeah, I think the justification was a little odd because they were saying, well, it would feel like a totally different game. I'm like, is that a bad thing for a game that came out 13 years ago?
Right. Yeah, that's fair. Now, but there was good news for players that like playing with FemShep, yes?
Yes. They used the iconic version from Mass Effect 3 and basically had that character available all the way through Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3. One of the big points that they were making through the entire presentation was that they were bringing a ton in line with the actual trilogy. So all of the customization options that were introduced in Mass Effect 3 is going to be available in Mass Effect 1 and 2. It's going to be a lot more coherent, I should say, and FemShep is going to be much more up into the standard of the male Shepard, who in the past, like I believe had an actual character model representing that particular character. So yes, so all of the improvements that they've made is consistent throughout. And I think that's pretty good.
Now, BioWare showed off that, they kind of walked us through like, here are some updated characters, and then here's a scene, and we turn, post-processing off, and they kind of, showed all the different layers of what they're up to. What were your thoughts on kind of the visuals? Because for me, I thought the environments saw the most improvement from what they showed off in the demo, and the characters not quite as obvious a jump. But what was your take on kind of the overall look of this thing?
I think the character models have a slight improvement in, like, say, from Mass Effect 3, but a huge improvement from the original Mass Effect. As we've said already before, being in 4K 60 with the improved character models and the improved environments is just going to be a giant glow up for the original Mass Effect, a game that holds a special place in our heart in so many ways, not the least because it's the most RPG out of them, but also, I mean, they showed a shot of the original Mass Effect and they had the alien eyes. And I was like, oh, right, they had the alien eyes back in 2007. God, that was weird.
Well, finally, Kat, the other big thing with Mass Effect 1 that, again, you and I, that's our favorite, the bugaboo for years and years, the elevator rides that cleverly mask the loading times. Has BioWare addressed that for this remaster?
They sure have. I couldn't believe how long the elevator rides were in the previous game. They were like almost a minute, sometimes more. And oh my gosh, it felt like an eternity as they were riding up the elevator. They did a great side by side with the one that the newly remastered version finishing in about 18 seconds or thereabouts. And you can actually skip through the conversations if you want to. And then they were out there running around the world. And meanwhile, they're still going on the elevator. So big improvements to the actual elevator loading sequences.
Well, that is good news. And then I guess they tweaked the Mako physics a little bit too, it sounds like. So there's that as well. So
I think that this is a game that you really, if you play it, I think you're going to feel a lot of differences, especially in the way that it actually moves. I think just going up to 60 frames per second is going to make a big difference. And if we think about it, like originally we all just kind of wanted a remaster. Maybe for Nintendo Switch, it's unfortunate that it's not going to be on Nintendo Switch. Maybe at some point in the near future, we'll see. But in the meantime, like in terms of just being a remaster, I feel like it ticks almost all of the boxes.
Yeah, I'm with you. I haven't played the original in years. And a good point about the frame rate, too. I mean, the original on the 360 was a gorgeous, early gen 360 game, but it ran like maybe in the high 20s frame rate wise. So it'd be nice to see it at 60. I can't wait to play Mass Effect 1, particularly again. That is going to be a treat. So we're going to look forward to playing the Mass Effect Legendary Edition pretty soon. It is not too far away. Kat, thank you so much for more on all things Mass Effect. Keep it tuned right here to IGN.
Thanks, everybody.